All right, so now that we've started this lovely droopy cheek, we want to continue all the way around. And so if you'll just turn to the side for a moment for me, turn to the right, there you go. You can almost make it your own, where you bring it up here and then you come back here and draw a line all the way back to the ear. And that'll just make a nice little fun effect later on when we get to highlighting. And so this is something you can make your own. Some people will have an indentation in their cheek that you can just follow that line. Most men have it a little bit further up in their cheek, but it's just a subtle little droop that you can create yourself to make some heavy cheeks on them. And the great thing about faces is we like to think that they're symmetrical, but they really aren't most of the time. It's very odd to find a perfectly symmetrical face. So if one side's different than the other, it's great. It just gives you more character. Next thing we want to do is we want to highlight her chin as far as how it would kind of come up from the bottom, you know, when people lose their teeth. They get that kind of look right there, and you just want to highlight that. And I had a little smudge there, so this should be a small enough smudge that I can just take it out with my finger, but if it's not, I'll just get my foundation brush, or foundation sponge, and just kind of cover it up. Most anything you mess up can be fixed with a sponge or your fingers. It's really just a fun way to do makeup. And then for her, I think I'm just gonna add a little bit of a divot in here, just for character. And I'm gonna connect that down into that line that I already drew, coming from the jawline under the chin. There we go, and this is a good start for our face. This is our lighter, more neutral shadow tones and the lines that we've created.
Well, and for reference, if we want to go for more of a monster effect, Boris Karloff in the original 1930s version of The Mummy was all makeup.
Oh yeah.
And the way they achieved that was, like you were just saying, adding more and more lines to the point that he was beyond old. He was leathered, you know, because he was supposed to be this 2,000-year-old corpse.
Absolutely. So I could add lines all the way through her cheeks, out to her ears. I'm just kind of going for a 80s, 85, 90-year-old kind of look. I don't think we're going for post-mortem here. But it's good to make sure that when you put it on originally, it's nice and thick so that you can spread it out. I'm going to add just a little bit more to these eye bags, to this eye shadow, and to these cheek lines, just so that I have a little more to spread out, since they're a little more intensive lines that we're working with, because they're very, very big character lines. From here, we are going to spread those lines out a little bit, make them nice and shadow bases for the darker tone that we're about to put in really sharp lines in the middle to show the very deepest part of those wrinkles. Okay, now that I've spread out or added a little more color to certain areas that I wanted to have real thick, I'm going to wipe my brush off so that the next color we use isn't muddied up by the color that I just put on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these fingers and I'm just going to kind of smudge everything. And also, when this comes in, it's really important that you would use that moisturizer beforehand, because if you start smudging and your skin's too dry, it actually can have a really non-productive effect. Because rather than smudging, your skin may just flake off with the color on there. So, I'm going to take my handy dandy brush, which has now been cleaned out, and I'm going to get this dark shadow. You can use your dark gray, your dark brown, your dark green, whatever color you're working with, and you want to put it on your brush in a nice straight line, or you want to use your dark pencil and have it nice and sharp, ready to apply. And you're just going to go back over every line that you just created in the very middle with this dark color. So you're going to want to have the lines on the outside edges as narrow as possible. You don't have to be specific about it, but just skinnier than the ones in the middle. Sometimes if drawing in a line isn't working, you can just do little taps with your brush and it achieves the same thing. So now that we've got our nice deep wrinkle lines in there, we're gonna start to highlight some things. And the reason we highlight is to try to create more of that 3D effect that we started by doing the neutral shade tan with the darker shadow. It just really gives the illusion that skin is sticking up or deeper in where it's actually just flat and smooth. So I take this bright color. You can use a really, really, really fair foundation for this, but I would suggest using either a white makeup or what we call a highlight, which is fairer than a foundation. It's usually an eyeshadow color or something you'll get in a Halloween makeup kit. So I'll just stick this on my finger because it will help me be able to spread out, and it's usually just faster than trying to apply it with a brush, because with the highlight you're not trying to be as specific as you are with the line, so you can kind of just dab it in the middle and just really bring out the area between your wrinkles. They actually make very nice powder highlighters that I would suggest, because the creams are a little bit more difficult to control if you've got wrinkles that are really close together like these. For your monster effect, you definitely want to go with your lightest green or blue or gray to put in between here, because that'll just really give you a kind of rotten look in between those dramatic wrinkles. The great thing about the cream highlighter or the cream white is that while you're doing these wrinkles, you can kind of just fill in and put it on your eyebrows, and it starts to already give them that kind of gray look. I'm noticing that the shadow under her eyes has completely washed away since we added the highlight and the dark shadow. So I'm just gonna fill that in a little bit with my brush. And that's something that'll happen. You think it looks dark enough at the first step because it is pretty dramatic the first step, but as you add the different layers and the different facets of the design, you have to go back and kind of fill in areas. All right, now the next step that I'm gonna take on her, so I'm gonna take this color. It's pretty much a natural skin tone color, maybe a hair darker, and it's just a cream makeup. You can go and use a darker foundation. You can just use a lighter brown than you were using before. You could mix your highlight and your lighter shadow together to create this color as well if you're limited on supplies. So Stipple brush, you can achieve it by just kind of crumpling up some paper towels if you're in real need, but they usually come with any Halloween makeup kit you get. It's just a really, really rough sponge is exactly what it is. And so I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna press it into this cream foundation. So this isn't achievable with the powder. This is the cream only situation, but it's also not necessary. It's just something I like to do to give the skin a little old texture. And so I'm just gonna take it on these highlighted areas and I'm just gonna punch it on her skin all over. And it just gives it a little texture to make it seem a little bit older and a little more natural, if you're going for the very realistic old person. Okay, so now that she's got some texture on her face, I'm gonna add a creepy red eye line. And this is something that as your eyes get older and tireder, they're not as susceptible to being bright and white. They tend to have a little bit of a red lid around the edges, and your actual eyes tend to be a little more bloodshot when you're older. So I just add what this makeup company calls a blush. It's kind of a pinkish, orangish, salmon almost color. And I just put it on the end of my brush. You can also use a lip liner for this, any kind of colored lip liner, just a pink, a red, anything like that. And I'm gonna line the top and the bottom of her eyes. Now, if you're having trouble doing these skinny lines, I wouldn't suggest trying to do the eye line. It's not necessary, it's just a fun effect, and it's just kind of scary if you're already shaken with the wrinkle lines to try to put this brush right up close to your eyes. So I'm pretty happy with where we're at here. I think we've got some nice dimensions, and I think once we get some gray in those eyebrows, we'll have a really nice look going on. So what I'm gonna do now that I like my product is I'm going to take some of this loose powder. Like I said, you can supplement cornstarch or just any kind of loose setting powder that you have around. Gonna get it on my powder brush, and I'm gonna ask her to close her eyes. I'm just gonna start tapping. And I have this big poof, and it's really handy because it's so big, I don't have to worry about it getting too clumped up in a certain area. And what this is doing is it's just setting all of that cream that we put on there so that it's not gonna just rub off at anything. I mean, it will still rub off, but it's a lot more difficult to get it off after you've set it in the powder. And the powder kind of brings back that pale look that we took away slightly with that stipple sponge and that darker base makeup. But it gives a nice kind of dried, old person skin look. All right, I'm gonna take one last look at what we've created here. I think it looks pretty good. So we're gonna add a little bit of this white to her eyebrows, just so that they aren't nice and young and colorful as they are right now. And this would also be the point is where you start thinking, do you need to get that kind of spray white that you can put in your hair? Do you want to just use some cream makeup and put it through the front strands and just say, you know, you're going gray? Do you want to have a wig? Do you want to wear a big burly hat that seems old to you? It's your decision on how you want to treat your hair, but having this hair and having this face doesn't always lead to the clearest perception of what you're going for. So I'm just gonna take this and just fill in her eyebrows with it. And like I said, you can use a white cream makeup to do this as well. It's just gonna rub out while this actually dries on there. And so, yeah, at this point we would wanna just take the towel and maybe just cover it up your hair like a little beggar woman or something to get that whole kind of old lady effect going on. And I'd say she aged a few years.
So some of the costume possibilities we would be looking at here, and one of the reasons I wanted Erin to show us the old aging effect was this is perfect if you want to go as a witch or an old crone, or for those of you out there who are going to do the hobo costume with your dad's old suit.
Oh yeah.
This is a perfect way to go.
Yeah, hats are really great accessories to use if you don't want to go all out with any kind of hair dye, and you can just kind of do these strands with your cream makeup to kind of give that effect. Other great things, if you're going with the hobo, you can take activated charcoal and use it to do one tooth black so you look like you're missing a tooth. Otherwise, they have the crayons that come in the Halloween makeup kits that you can just black out one tooth or another. And that's always really fun. Clothes are definitely a big impact on your costume. You want to choose things that go with the age that you're working with, go with the theme you're working with, and that you're going to be comfortable in and usually warm in during Halloween.
So from the Cooperative Extension Service here in Little Rock, Arkansas, and 4-H After School program, I'm Professor Wright, and this is
Erin Anson with Ballet Arkansas.
And she has shown you how to do an aging effect with makeup, and as well as that, she's shown you how to take it off. So I hope everybody goes out and has a really safe Halloween. Remember to carry a flashlight and make sure your costume is appropriate and not something you're going to trip over and fall, because you will be out in the dark. And stay away from houses you're not aware of or you don't know the people at, and make sure there's an adult with you at all times. Thank you.